Have you achieved every single goal that you've ever set in your life, no matter what? Do you have a 100% success rate with goals? Or are there important areas in your career and your life where you feel like you've fallen short of the things you aspire to achieve? Well, in this video, I'm giving you my top takeaways on how to gain more clarity and more direction in your goals and how to take consistent action towards achieving them. Welcome to the Rebase Show. I am your host, Sean P. Martin, and if this is your first time joining us, this is the show for Profession with Purpose, where we will equip you with the tools, the tips, the stories, the wisdom, everything that you need in order to create more success and more fulfillment in your career and in your life. And this episode is another one of our tactical takeaways episodes where I'm going to review a previous conversation that we had on the show with Krista Large back in episode 33. And Krista's story was really remarkable. She is a health and wellness coach that focuses on consistency, sustainability, and accountability to help her clients achieve life-changing transformation in their physical health. And we got to talk with Krista back in episode 33 about her journey and about how she got to this point. And this episode is not going to be an all-encompassing summary of that conversation. So if you haven't listened to that episode with Krista, then I definitely recommend going back and checking out episode 33, which you can also do by going to rebase.cc/33, and that'll take you to the episode post. However, for this time that we're going to spend together today, I'm going to, again, not summarize the entire episode, but the purpose of these tactical episodes is to really give you my top handful of takeaways from my conversations with these amazing people and to actually give you something tactical and actionable that you can actually put into place and you can take action on now in order to achieve some great growth in your career and in your life. And so if that sounds good to you, then we're about to dive in here. I'm going to give you my top 3 takeaways from my conversation with Krista Large. And once we get to takeaway number 1, you're going to get 2 action items to take that you can actually put into practice today. So without further ado, let's dive in. So tactical takeaway number 3 is that if you happen to feel aimless or directionless in the current phase of your career, then the best thing to do is to pick a direction, perhaps a direction that is interesting to you or something that moves you in a positive direction, even if it is not exactly what it is you're looking for, but to pick a direction and then stick with it at least for a little while. And I can understand how you might feel aimless or directionless and you don't see any options that are exactly what you wanted, or you don't see a particular path right now that is something that you're super excited about. And here's the reason why you need to just pick a direction and why you need to actually stick with it for a little while. You know, all too often we get caught up waiting for perfect conditions. We get caught up waiting for the perfect job, the perfect whatever it may be. And then we sit in this planning phase, this preparation phase, we sit in action basically, and sitting in inaction usually gets us really nowhere if we're sitting around for way too long. And here's the thing, everything is impermanent. No job has to be the job that you have for the rest of your life, for the rest of the year. Everything is impermanent. Everything is temporary to some degree. So usually it's better to make a choice, to decide, to pick a direction, and then commit to that direction, which we're going to talk a little bit more about here in a second, but commit to that direction for at least a little while. And where does this come from? Well, in my conversation with Krista, she mentioned how she has always been very driven, but for a long time in her life, especially growing up, she was driven, but not driven in any particular direction. She wanted to do great things. She just didn't quite have a direction early on and throughout, middle school, high school. And then even in college, it sounded like, she was studying to be a nutritionist and she was getting a degree in nutrition. And when she graduated from college, it turns out that only about 50% of people who graduate from her college with a nutrition degree actually get matched with a nutritionist opportunity and get matched with that next step. And when she didn't get matched, she felt a little aimless and a little directionless, and she felt like she had failed somehow and like she wasn't good enough. And so what did she end up doing? She actually went back and moved back home for a little bit to Houston, Texas, and she got a job that was, I believe, a temporary job, a contract job, working in the oil and gas industry, which is what a lot of her family was doing. And she even worked really hard to try to move up in that job in just the short amount of time that she was there, 6 or 7 months. And what ended up happening was, in her time spent in Houston, she ended up going to church with one of her aunts one day. And in the church, there were some flyers up that they needed somebody to help teach a health class. And had Krista not committed to just picking a direction and then going and taking that job in oil and gas, which, it wasn't exactly her dream job either, but it put her in the right place in Houston, around family, going to this church, getting to teach a health class. And that helped to renew her excitement and her passion around teaching health and using the things that she had learned in college. And so a lot of people worry about going too far down the wrong path, quote unquote. And honestly, I have to say that in almost every single case, there is no such thing as going down the wrong path professionally. And here's a few reasons why that's not really something that you have to worry about. Look, first of all, any path, any job can leave you with new lessons, new takeaways, new skills, sharper versions of skills that you had previously. Recently in the Profession with Purpose Facebook community, I asked the question, and I asked everybody what their first ever job was and if there was anything that they learned from their first job. And it was really remarkable to see the answers of what some people's first jobs were. And a lot of them had jobs or bosses or companies they worked for that they really didn't like, but they still had things that they could take away from that first job now looking back on it. Here's just a few examples I'm going to read off. My favorite job that I never knew existed. One member, Sam, said, "I made the tubes between paper towels and toilet paper. And having that job taught me about appreciating the whole process that is in an organization." Someone else said, "I had the worst asshole of a boss you can imagine working at a restaurant. And that taught me to appreciate good leadership and what type of leader I don't want to be." Someone else said that their first job was in college, and they said that I worked in the mini mart or the restaurant in my dorm my freshman year, and I learned to love living near where you work. I also learned to take pride in any task that I was doing. I washed dishes and made sure that they were clean enough that I'd eat off them. I mopped the floors and I made sure they were as clean as I would have liked them to be in my own home. But I also asked a lot of questions about how others did things, and I tried different methods. I also learned not to watch the clock. And it was the shifts where I didn't have it in me, that I couldn't get lost in the work, and I'd do things here and there, and I'd look at the clock only to see 15 minutes had passed, and then I knew I'd have to be there for another 3 hours. So no matter what the path is that you go down, if you commit to something just for a little while, you're likely to take something away from that experience versus if you just sit around indecisive and not actually taking action. And when I say sticking with something for at least a little bit, 6 months, a year, give yourself time to get familiar and comfortable with whatever path it is you're taking. If you are feeling a little bit aimless and directionless, give yourself time to get used to things a little bit. Because a lot of people I know will be presented with a job that they don't really love and they're not excited about, or it doesn't take them in the exact path they thought they needed to go. And they'll say, "I'll just take this job until I find something better." Well, I would challenge you to slightly tweak that and say, I'll take this job, I'll take this path, and I'll do the best job I possibly can, no matter what the outcome is. That first way of, I'll take this until I find something better, you are still kind of sitting around waiting for another opportunity to present itself and to open up to you. And you're waiting for somebody else to make something happen for you. And taking that second path and going the direction where you're going to do the best job you possibly can, because that's just who you are and what you do. You never know what opportunities you might be able to discover, what opportunities you might create. Maybe somebody will recognize your hard work and your work ethic, or they'll see potential in you and they'll connect you with somebody, or they'll present an opportunity to you that you wouldn't have even known existed. You might even find some aspect of that work in a job that you weren't super thrilled about that you really like. And now you've learned something new about yourself. Again, developing new skills, developing new strengths, finding new interests. And so Krista even tried to move up in the oil and gas industry when she was there for a short time. And what's funny is the job that she had in the oil and gas industry was called a document control specialist. And she was uploading documents and things like that. And if you go back and you listen to the episode, she knew she wanted to move to Austin, Texas from Houston. And she ended up landing a job with a really popular company here in town called Onnit. And Onnit does supplements and workout equipment and food and all these other things. And they needed a document control specialist. Of all the things in the world, I'd never even heard of this position before, but she had just enough experience in oil and gas, even though that wasn't where she wanted to go initially. And she ended up landing this job at Onnit for a document control specialist because she had that title on her resume. And really the last reason why you need to pick a direction and go in that direction is because life isn't so binary of like the right path and the wrong path. It just really doesn't exist anymore. And there are a million ways for you to get to the career that you love and your profession with purpose. There's not one single method of doing so. And it doesn't matter what industry really that you're in, there's still going to be a lot of very different ways that you can get to where you want to be. And so just showing up and putting in that effort and having a strong work ethic. And if you're feeling aimless and directionless, choose a path and commit to it at least for a little while. And that's tactical takeaway number 3. Tactical takeaway number 2 is that reflection time is super important. You need time to reflect on things like what is great and what's maybe not so great about your current career situation, your current life situation. Reflecting on the things that you can control and the things you can't control. Reflecting on what you're doing that's working and what's not working. Reflecting on what serves you and your goals and what's not serving you and your goals. And maybe you don't have strong enough goals. So maybe you need to reflect and think on whether or not you need to revise or amend goals or the actions you're taking or the direction you're going. But taking that time to reflect is super important. And this is clear in basically any industry that you look at. I speak with people in the military. They have debriefs. I worked in software engineering for decades. We have retrospectives and reviews. Taking time to reflect is important in any organization. So why shouldn't it be something that you do in your career and with the direction of your life? Otherwise, you're just going to be left allowing life to happen to you and dragging you in whatever direction it wants you to go. So taking time to reflect and actually taking that ownership and that accountability for where your life is going is extremely, extremely important. And this could be once a quarter, it could be once a month, it could be once a year, but just taking stock of where it is that you're at is super important. And I'll give you Krista's example. So she, had been in Houston, Texas. She had been working in the oil and gas industry. She eventually moved to Onnit. She's working in the corporate side of the Onnit company. Eventually started working in the gym part-time. She was teaching classes. She did some training certifications. She eventually became a trainer at the Onnit gym. And it was what she thought was her dream job. She thought that she was on the path and she had made it, so to speak. But then around her birthday one year, she went on a trip and she took that time to reflect. And she realized that she actually, even though by all perceptions from the outside, it seemed like she had made it and she had everything that anybody would have wanted in her situation, she was completely unhappy. She was stressed out. She had developed some issues with binge eating. She was constantly comparing herself to all these other people around her. And she had these ideas in her head of everything that she thought she had to be that she wasn't. She was plagued by what, I like to call not enoughness, where it didn't matter that she had achieved this goal that she had set out for herself. She felt like she wasn't pretty enough, or she wasn't sexy enough, or she didn't have as many social media followers as she needed to, or she wasn't making as much money as she thought she had to. And she was really quite unhappy. And she realized that this pace she was on, she was burning herself out, maybe already had burned herself out. And she needed that time to reflect to see this, because otherwise she might have just kept going and going and going until she really did absolutely burn out and really damage her health, maybe long-term, maybe damage her life long-term. So taking this time to reflect is super important. And that is tactical takeaway number 2. My top takeaway, tactical takeaway number 1, is that small victories build confidence, and small victories lead to great victories over time. I know that we all are kind of impatient. We want to achieve our goals tomorrow. I'm as guilty of that as anybody else. I don't exactly have the largest amount of patience in the world. And we have to realize that it's these small victories over time that actually lead to the big victories that we see others achieving, the goals that we see others hitting. It's not that they just woke up one day and they said, I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to create this business. And then it just happens overnight. Basically every overnight success that you think you've ever seen comes with those little victories along the way, and a lot of hard work and a lot of consistency and a lot of discipline. And, what are these small victories over time? Well, they're really habits is what they are. And you need to start small with doing things habitually, doing things consistently over time. And then that builds a foundation of success. And those little victories become things that you then build upon. And you build upon those things, you build upon those things, and it does compound over time. When you look at any real example of success out there in the world, I like to think about, I'm a sports guy. I like to think about, college football, for example. I used to absolutely hate Alabama football and Nick Saban. And over time, I just garnered so much respect for Nick Saban and for his program and for what he does as a coach, because he drills into his players. And these guys are the best athletes coming out of high school in the country. And he drills the fundamentals into them. And they build those little successes by getting better at the fundamentals over and over and over and over and over again until it comes completely naturally. And then they build on top of that and they build on top of that. And that's how they consistently are so good. So when you're setting your goals, and you set these big, grandiose, audacious goals, which if you're like me, you probably have some pretty big goals. They won't come from doing one thing great one time. They will come from consistency and doing the little things right consistently over time. And so the goal here, and what we're going to get into with our action items for today, is to start small. Start with small habits. And it's going to be tough if you have big, audacious goals. You want to start big, I know, but you want to be consistent with these things. And so you're going to start small, and then you're going to stack these habits over time. And so that's what we're going to get into here. And if you're committed, if you've got some goal that you really want to hit, maybe it's a goal that's eluded you over time. Maybe it's something that you've tried and failed a couple of times, or you just really haven't ever gotten fully motivated to do it, but you really want to do something. There's some goal you want to achieve. Then here's what I want you to do. And this is a 2-part exercise, these 2 action items that we're going to do. The first thing, and this is what Krista recommended whenever we're setting an outcome goal, right? So I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to make, $10,000 more in salary. I want to build a business that produces X amount of revenue, right? I want to grow my podcast following by 1,000 subscribers in 4 months. I don't know. What you're going to do is you're going to take that outcome goal. And then based on Krista's recommendation, we're going to dive right into one of my favorite exercises, which is the 5 whys. And you're going to take that outcome goal and you're going to ask yourself, okay, first why is, why do I want to achieve this outcome goal? So let's use losing weight, losing 20 pounds in 2021. So we're in 2021 right now, and you want to lose 20 pounds this year. And you ask yourself, okay, why do I want to lose 20 pounds? Why 20 pounds? Why not 25? Why 15? Why not 15, right? Why do I want to lose 20 pounds? And you answer that question. You say, well, because I want to feel more energetic. I want my clothes to fit better. I want to look better. Okay. Second why. Why do you want more energy? Why do you want your clothes to fit better? Why do you want these things? Well, I want more energy because I'm tired of feeling drained at the end of the day. And I want more energy because I like being outside and the weather's getting nicer, and being outside makes me feel more alive. And I want my clothes to fit better because I really like those clothes and I don't want to go out and buy a bunch of new ones and stuff gets expensive. Okay. Well, why do you want to be outside? Well, my kids like playing outside and I want to go outside and I want to be able to play with my kids. Okay. Well, why do you want? So you see how we're doing this here? And the goal here with the 5 whys isn't just to do busy work. It's to develop an emotional attachment to the goals that you have. And as Krista was saying, if you have a really hard time, if you can't get to that 5th why and you can't get that far, you may not have a goal that is inspiring enough. It just may be the wrong goal. You may need to revisit the first goal. You may need to put some more measurement around it. You may need to look deeper at that goal. And my recommendation here is you really have to feel the why, not just ask yourself intellectually, well, why do I want to play with my kids outside? And if you try to answer that up in your head, you're probably going to come up with some nonsense answer. But if you really feel like, okay, why? Feel it in your body, in your heart. Why do I want to go outside and play with my kids? Well, I love my kids and they're getting older and I don't want to lose this time with them. Oh, well, that's a much better reason than, why do I want to go outside and play with my kids? Well, it's nice outside, right? So really feeling that why when you're asking yourself. And doing this exercise, again, is going to help you develop real emotional attachment to your goals. And why is that important? Well, without that emotional attachment to the goal and to the whys, you're far less likely to stay committed to achieving that outcome and to staying consistent with those habits, which we're going to get into right now. And that's action item number 2, is that you're going to take this outcome goal. Once you have a goal that is strong enough for you, that you really have emotional attachment to, you've gone through your 5 whys, you're going to take that outcome goal and you're going to transform that outcome goal into consistent behaviors. And so what does that mean? Okay, well, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, what's a consistent behavior that you can do that will help get you on the path there? Okay, well, I want to go running every day. It's an option. All right. I want to stop eating junk food. Okay, well, stopping eating junk food isn't necessarily a habit, but maybe not eating junk food at home, not buying junk food, right? Cooking 2 meals a day, cooking 1 meal a day. These are things that you can do daily, multiple times a week, that you can do consistently, right? And exercise is a great one for this particular example. But even if you say, I'm going to go running outside every day, well, what happens if it's snowing? What happens if it's raining? What happens, right? So think of things and word things in a way that you could be consistent. You could just say, move my body 20 minutes a day. I do that every morning without fail. I get up and I take the dog for a walk for at least 20 to 30 minutes. So even if I don't get in, a real workout, if I don't lift weights, if I don't do cardio, if I don't do something like that, I know that I've moved my body for 20 to 30 minutes a day. So how do you set these things up so that they can be consistent behavioral goals? And this doesn't mean that you're going to do that exact thing every day for the rest of your life. The goal is to create it in a way that you can get that little victory, right? That small victory that forms that foundation that then leads to your bigger victories. Okay. So first thing you're going to do is take your outcome goal and you're going to set a very clear set of your 5 whys. You're going to go through the 5 whys until you can really feel that emotional attachment to this goal that you set. And then you're going to take that outcome goal and you're going to convert that into a consistent behavior. You're going to start with just that one consistent behavior for now. So pick something and just try to see what you can do every day. And you're going to try to do that for 30 days. All right. So in closing, if you need additional help, if you want additional help for transforming your habits, for growing your confidence, and for experiencing a life with your health in alignment, then I definitely recommend you reach out to Krista Large, and you can do that at livinglargewellness.com. And for another great resource on habit building, I highly recommend the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I know I'm not the first person to recommend that book, and it's a fantastic book, and it really helps you get a good sense of how you can build consistent habits starting from scratch and turn them into really amazing long-term lasting change. So after joining me for this episode today, I got to ask, are you ready to finally tackle this thing, that goal that's eluded you in the past? Are you prepared to create and set a fresh new version of that goal in a way that excites you, that has that emotional attachment to it? A goal where you're truly emotionally attached to it and committed to the outcome. And are you going to take action on those 2 action items that we just covered? One of the big themes from my conversation with Krista Large was her mantra of consistency, sustainability, and accountability. And I got to be honest, accountability is maybe the biggest piece of this, especially whenever you're just starting out with a big goal or a new goal and you're starting out with new habits. That accountability is huge, because before they become a consistent part of your life, you're just trying to pattern that into your normal everyday behavior. So I want you to think about someone in your life that you know who might also want to improve some aspect of their career or some aspect of their life, someone who wants to create a change. And I want you to share this with them. And that way, the 2 of you, you can even do these 2 action items together. You could do your 5 whys as a conversation. And then you could figure out what your daily habit is, that consistent action, and you can hold each other accountable to doing that on a consistent basis. So I want you to do that. I want you to think of somebody else who might want to be on this path with you. And they don't have to have the same goal. It could be a totally different goal, but you could hold each other accountable and you could go through this exercises together. And that'll really help you start out on the right foot and lead to accomplishing huge, meaningful goals. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I love doing these tactical takeaway episodes for you guys. Even if there's not a great reception for them, I may keep doing them just because I enjoy doing them so much. So until next time, for the Rebase Show, the show that's all about profession with purpose, I'm Sean, signing off. Cheers.